and good evening everyone. I'm Tarjani Dave from the Anji Reddy campus of LVPEI Institute. I extend a very, very warm welcome to all of you today, distinguished guests, Anuradha ji and family, faculty, friends, students who've joined us today. Welcome to the endowment lecture. Today, we are going to have the Syamala Bhaskaran Endowment lecture, and this series of lectures was initiated following the generous support by the Bhaskarans to LVPEI Institute. We've been having the annual lecture, and today we are very privileged to have with us Anuradha ji, who's going to delve into a very, very insightful topic. The lecture is very special to us given that the Bhaskarans' accomplishments and commitments to science, to microbiology, to cytology, to blood banking are remembered by the academic community in and around us nearly almost every day. Truly privileged to have all of you with us today. And I'd just like to show you a little snapshot of what LVPEI Institute stands for with this little video. Glimpse of what all of us here at LVPEI stand for, and I don't want to take too much of your time. I'm eagerly waiting for the lecture by Professor Lohia as well. I'd like to invite Saumya Jakati to introduce the endowment lecture to us.
Good evening, everyone. So, Professor C. Syamala Bhaskaran, she was a distinguished academician, an accomplished researcher, and an inspiring teacher. This name deeply resonates in the field of pathology, where she has made remarkable contributions in the fields of cytopathology and oncopathology. Dr. Bhaskaran's academic journey began with pursuing MD in pathology and bacteriology from Andhra University. Then she had a relentless pursuit of knowledge, which had led her to training at Bland Sutton University in London and in the University of Pittsburgh at USA. She pursued oncopathology and immunopathology over there. Over a career spanning over 2 decades, she had served as professor and head of pathology in various medical colleges across the then combined state of Andhra Pradesh. And then later, she was the additional director of medical education and professor head at Gandhi Medical College, and she also served as principal over there until her retirement in 1980. She was a dedicated educator, and she had mentored numerous postgraduates in pathology, and she has contributed over 80 research publications in various reputed journals. Her expertise and dedication have been recognized through various prestigious fellowships and awards, including the Fellowship of National Academy of Medical Sciences, Fellowship of International Medical Sciences Academy, and the Indian College of Pathologists. She also was awarded the prestigious B.C. Roy National Award by MCI, Best Teacher Award from the Government of Andhra Pradesh, Ernest Fernandes Award from Indian Academy of Cytologists, and Shankar Banerjee Memorial Award from IAPM, which is Indian Association of Pathologists and Microbiologists, AP chapter. Professor Bhaskaran she has also delivered many notable orations such as Dr. T.V.S. Chalapati Rao Memorial Oration, Sipla oration, and Advani Braganza orations. Beyond her institutional roles, she actively participated in various national organizations like ICMR, MCI, and National Board of Education. She was a council member of the National Academy of Medical Sciences. Even after retirement, she continued her clinical practice and she participated in various CME programs and stayed committed to advancement in pathology. This distinguished lecture series was established to honor the legacy of Professor C. Syamala Bhaskaran. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jakati, for giving a brief intro on the award. Next, we have, I'll request Professor Balasubramaniam to please come and share about the awardee. Yeah, thanks.
I had a distinct pleasure and honor to introduce to you Professor Anuradha Lohia, who is the chairperson of the Manovikas Kendra, Kolkata. She is a leader in scientific research and education in India. She's an eminent molecular biologist who has made seminal discoveries in the field of infectious diseases. During her tenure at the Bose Institute, Kolkata, she had collaborated with leading scientists in USA, Germany, and Singapore. She has received the prestigious Rockefeller Biotechnology Career Fellowship and is an elected fellow of the Indian Academy of Sciences, Bangalore. In the year 2001, she received the National Award for Young Women Bioscientists. In recognition of her scientific acumen and leadership, Anuradha was appointed as the first CEO of the Indo-British organization, the Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance in Hyderabad. Many of us at that time had actually known of Anuradha, and she used to come over here to talk to us, and we used to go over there and bother her about possible grants and things of that kind, which was given actually. And then she went on from there to serve as the Vice Chancellor of the Presidency University, Kolkata, the one that has had distinguished alumni like J.C. Bose and people like that. And she was there for 3 consecutive terms for 9 years. With her experience both in basic biology, molecular biology, genetics, and her particular interest in looking at the cerebral aspects and possible applications of these to children who are really handicapped in a variety of manner, neuromuscular and neurogenetics and so on. And she has now used this knowledge of hers at the Institute. After she moved from the Presidency University, she took full time to come over as the chair of the Manovikas Kendra, Kolkata, and has set up laboratories, scientifically driven diagnosis and personalized therapies for children with special needs. In addition to her contributions in science and education, she is deeply committed to the promotion of performing arts. Again, several of you know, at one time when she was hardly 40, I was the director at that time of CCMB and said, people below 40 are welcome to come over here, but you have to do something. She said yes. And she danced Kuchipudi. Can you imagine doing that? And I think our friendship has gone on from then on and so on. So she has been a classical dancer herself. And as she would tell you, the Institute at Manovikas Kendra has set up excellent facilities for clinical diagnosis, for looking at children who are cognitive and otherwise disabled and so on, and looked after them person after person. I think this is very important. I have been privileged to be on the board of Manovikas Kendra for several years now, and I have seen how the Manovikas Kendra laboratory have grown 4 floors with all facilities for cognitive disability, how to look at them and how to treat them and so on. And full-fledged laboratory with the help of her daughter, Madhura, who herself is a geneticist. So we had this wonderful combination of genetics, cognitive science, neuromuscular disorders, and so on. And all these four laboratories, 4 floors of the laboratory at Manovikas Kendra, I invite on behalf of the Manovikas Kendra, all of you to go visit them. And today, there was not enough time for Manovikas Kendra chair, that is Anuradha Lohia, and also Madhura, as well as their Mr. Arun Lohia, who has been really a great admirer and also supported the facilities all these years and so on. This, I think, is so that we have this trilogy of the 3 people getting together. And as I said, today they just didn't have enough time to look at floor after floor, although they did look at some of our groups and so on. So we hope that you will again visit us in the coming years, and we will visit you in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Balasubramaniam, for just taking us through the whole life of Professor Anuradha Lohia and all the amazing work she's done. I'm very honored to announce the Endowment Lecture Award C. Bhaskaran for the year 2025 to be given to Professor Anuradha Lohia. So may I request you to please come on the stage. Before I invite Professor Anuradha Lohia to share about today's lecture, I'll request the AV to play the video so that you can, like Professor Balu had mentioned, that you should all come to Manovikas Kendra, Kolkata. So we've just arranged a short visit for you to just visit the good work happened, and you can personally, this is a small trailer so that later on you can actually go and visit yourself and see the wonderful work happening.
Manovikas Kendra is the first institution of its kind in Eastern India, with the firm belief that all students can grow and achieve against any odds, providing every child an inclusive environment to flourish and express oneself, and help them to explore their potential from early childhood to adolescence, paving the way for them to live on their own terms. Founded in 1974 by Dr. Sharda Fatehpuria, exploring the possibilities of development through sustained scientific intervention and consistent care, Manovikas has grown over the past 5 decades to touch and transform the lives of over 10,000 children with special needs and their families, focusing on inclusive learning in an exclusive environment. Today, her pioneering idea has created an awareness regarding the importance of mental health. Manovikas brings together experts to provide a variety of therapies and training to children and their parents. Center for Assessment and Therapy. Empowering today for a brighter tomorrow. Psychiatrists, psychoanalysts, and special educators at this center identify and address the needs of these children through personalized intervention programs. Center for Education. Unlocking learning, lighting futures. Center for Teaching and Training. Mano Chetna, enriching every child's journey. Center for Vocational Training. Crafting skills, shaping futures. Cafe Ability was started in December 2023 to provide experiential training in food and beverage services. It is a cozy corner for discussions and small gatherings. Center for Biomedical Research. The center investigates the molecular basis of various neurodevelopmental disorders. Center for Brain Function Therapy and Stress Management, harmonizing minds Nurturing Balance. Center for Molecular Diagnostics, unveiling precision to empower health.
আমার ছেলে অনিন্দ, ও আছে ওবিসি লেভেলে। এখানে এসে আমার ছেলে মানে আগের থেকে প্রচুর ডেভেলপ হয়েছে, যেমন ওর সিটিং স্প্যানটা অনেক বেড়েছে, ওর পেশেন্সটা অনেক বেড়েছে। এখানে এসে ও রিসাইটেশন করতে পারে, বিভিন্ন অনুষ্ঠানে ও সোলো পারফরমেন্স করে।
Manovikas is the only institution of its kind with an array of services from assessment and therapy to scholastic education and vocational training, while conducting scientific research and providing state-of-the-art modern interventions under one roof. Manovikas Kendra works towards creating a just and better world for all children.
I'll request Professor Anuradha Lohia to please come.
Never felt so humble. It's one thing to give a lecture. It's one thing to come home to give a lecture. LV Prasad has been, this eye institute has been an inspiration since Balu first invited me here in 1998 or 99. As fascinated by what you people have done. The translational approach, the concept of taking right from the patient to the bench, laboratory bench and back. You're unbelievable. If we can come even slightly close to you, I never hope to do that in this life to become like you, but if we can emulate you even slightly, we'll have succeeded. So you are the inspiration, LV Prasad. And every time I come, there's something new, new faces, lovely bright research happening. And I know my research friends are waiting to grill me like I'll grill them. So I'm quite terrified of them, but I'll soldier on. Always happy to feel welcome here. LV Prasad, thank you. Thank you for having me over. I'm your own, and you've bestowed a award on me. It's difficult. Thank you so much. I'm going to talk to you today about Manovikas Kendra, which I am privileged to be a part of. I remember in 1974 when it first started, my mother asked me, she's the founder, to teach dance there. I went for only 1 week and I couldn't bear it. The emotional burden was so difficult and I was just in college. I think I ran away and became a scientist. So it is my duty to return there after my science journey has matured. So Manovikas is dedicated not-for-profit institution. It provides rehabilitation, inclusive education and vocational training to neurodivergent children for the last 50 years. Our mission has been that no child left behind, and the word impossible is spelt differently in Manovikas. Vision is to explore and develop to the fullest the potential that each one of us has. I want to highlight Shamla here. She had learning difficulties because she had asphyxia at birth, and she still has learning difficulties. But she joined Manovikas for giving her school certificate exam at the National Institute of Open Schooling and vocational training. And she also went on to train as a swimmer. She's a very strong, very athletic girl. She went on to win the gold medal at the Special Olympics in Dubai. I made the mistake of introducing her to someone and said, Shalmali's got a bronze. She tapped me on the shoulder and said, ma'am, gold. This is our leadership at Manovikas. My mother, Dr. Fatehpuria, conceptualized it at a time when people didn't know what was autism or ADHD or Down syndrome, and children with special needs were classified as untreatable. But she had the courage of her vision. She set up Manovikas Kendra, and these are very big shoes to fill, but the rest of our team is trying very hard. Our director, Mrs. Amita Prasad, this is Mrs. Amita Prasad, a historian by training, but has been in mainstream education for many, many years, decades. And she pointed out to me several years ago that 25% of school-going children have learning disability. And schools, mainstream schools, don't have special educators. They don't have therapists. Under the new education policy, they are bound to have it, but that's just for naam ke vaste. My daughter Madhura has joined us as Dean of Research and Development after her career in studying cell adhesion and she ran Bangalore Genie for a few years, came back to Calcutta thankfully, and is now involved in research and development. Swagata Sinha is our head of the Center for Assessment. She is a clinical psychiatrist. Kanchan Mukhopadhyay is our research scientist and director of the research unit. You have with us the senior most teacher of Manovikas Kendra, which is Shraddha, who is sitting in the audience today, and I dare not look at her because she can miss. And so you see, we have a very deep connection with Hyderabad. Shraddha is from Hyderabad, but she's ours, so she is from Calcutta. Rinku Gain is the principal of the school unit, and Mova runs the National Institute of Open Schooling. So Manovikas has these departments centrally. One is the Center for Assessment and Therapy, Center for Biomedical Research and Diagnostics, Center for Education, National Institute of Open Schooling, Center for Vocational Training, and Physiotherapy. So the Physiotherapy Center we run as a service to anyone and everyone. We have our own physiotherapy unit for our children, but we also have one for the public. So the first stop to any parent who comes to Manovikas is at the Center for Assessment and Therapy. It's a gateway for specialized analysis, personalized therapy programs for individuals with special needs. Our team of psychiatrists, psychologists, special educators, pathologists, and OT, occupational therapists and physiotherapists collectively provide a diagnosis which we put on a very nice electronic health record system which is designed for us by a bioinformatician, a young man called Arjun Gupta, who has now started his own company. We were his first customers, and has devised a very, very user-friendly electronic health record. And I promised I'd introduce him to you, so I'll certainly give the contact about him. A Center for Education is what my mother had started with, and this caters to the educational and functional needs for children with intellectual and developmental disorders and other learning disabilities. Now, we are registered with the Government of India for the National Institute of Open Schooling. As you know, it is one of the most successful schooling systems for children who cannot complete their degrees in the biological age time that most school children do. And the curriculum is very flexible. So the child can take up music for his curriculum, or he can take up swimming and get a degree. But basically, the degree means this, that they can go out and apply for a job. They are not illiterate, because our system recognizes a certificate or a degree. So at the Center of Vocational Training is where all their skill sets really flower. We have amazing, COVID taught us, I was just sharing this with Dr. Garg, that COVID taught us that our children are fantastic with multimedia designing and computers. When it was a lockdown, we thought, what is going to happen to these children and their parents? How are they going to be able to survive even the home environment? Every single parent, and we made sure they had smartphones, put their child on the smartphone, and all of our dedicated teachers had classes like there was no COVID. This was a very, very successful time for us. And we then learned that they could do multimedia design and other programs. They are fantastic musicians. So we have the Tal Tarang of Manovikas Kendra, which is invited all over the city at any given conference or program, and our wonderful drummers are all over the place. Similarly, the dance program that you see, which is done annually, and this is the one which is conducted by Shraddha, who's sitting here. The Ability Cafe was, I must proudly tell you that the name was designed by Madhura, because the spelling, the ability, and making them able is what we do. So here you see them in the kitchen baking, and then that food is served to the restaurant, like in the cafe. Now we come to the Center for Molecular and Biomedical Research. So after the clinical diagnosis, molecular biologists confirm genetic, chromosomal or proteomic abnormalities. In 1999, I approached the Department of Biotechnology and I said, would you give us a setup grant and can I do this in Manovikas Kendra? And the answer was, of course, no. We don't support NGOs. So thankfully, Manju Sharma was at a conference and she had some free time. So I said, Dr. Sharma, you sure you won't support NGOs? She said, let me see your institution. And one visit and she said, send the grant. So we got the grant and, we are here today. So it has been 25 years of our Biomedical Research Center. We've been working on developing molecular diagnostics using pharmacogenomics and brain function therapy to deliver precise treatments and enhance rehabilitation outcomes. The disorders that we study at Manovikas are intellectual disability, Down syndrome, and the good thing, or I don't know if I should give a value to it, what we are seeing is a decline in Down syndrome. This could be because of genetic tests which are available to parents, and we do see a decline. However, on the flip side, we see an extremely high number of autism patients, attention deficiency hyperactivity disorder, and the rare syndromes also come to us like Klinefelter, Turner, and recently we got a Tourette syndrome as well. This is just a snapshot of our dashboard from the clinic. And you'll see that this is over the last 3 years, we had 2,130 cases. Most of the cases is autism spectrum disorder. Today, 4 cases walk in. We know at least 3 of them are going to be autism. And sometimes all 4. Intellectual disability is something which we group under a broad heading where all the traits cannot be put into a known cluster. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, it seems to be less here, but actually a lot of that is overlapping with autism, so that's got included in the autism. Down syndrome, developmental delay, cerebral palsy. We don't get cerebral palsy individuals because there's a very good institute of cerebral palsy in Kolkata, and we would like to refer them there because they have a lot of teachers training and other programs at the IICP. Which also, by the way, was started 50 years ago by a very dedicated psychologist, Dr. Sudha Kaul. We provide also brain function therapy, and this really helps our children with autism and ADHD. Even to get them to the table for mindfulness is a challenge, but the mindfulness training, if they start using it, it's amazing therapy. Cognitive therapy and neurofeedback therapy. Here's some data from the cognitive training. You can see, so we always tell the parents, they're always in a hurry. So they want to take 1 or 2 sessions and say, lekin abhi to kuch nahi hua. And then you have to say, nahi, it'll take 2 years. But after 10 sessions, we can see, as you see in the red line here, all the parameters of mental flexibility, impulse control, concentration have improved dramatically from the pre-therapy period. If at the end of 10 sessions we give them a break for about a month or 2 months, depending on the parents, they will not regress down to the pre-therapy levels. They'll regress a little, but we can take them up faster. So we've had this child who's now been coming for 2 years for cognitive therapy, and it's wonderful. He is able to sit for his, he goes to a regular school, he's able to sit for his school exam. We also use an EEG-based, electroencephalogram-based neurofeedback therapy, where your own brain trains your own mind. So we take the electroencephalography pattern before the therapy. What you see is the 4 waves that we measure here are delta, theta, alpha, and beta. Now, pre-therapy, we find mostly higher delta and theta waves. And that leads to higher depression and anxiety. It's correlated. And we also see concomitantly lower alpha and beta waves, which is also leading to decrease in concentration, focus, or mental ability. After again 10 sessions of neurofeedback therapy, we find that the delta and theta waves reduce, higher alpha and beta waves are seen, and you can see the heat maps of the different brain areas where alpha, beta, and theta waves were matched. And it is remarkable. It's difficult to explain to parents that we are not playing with their mind. It's non-invasive. We are just taking the electrical brain pattern. But there's fear. There is a lot of fear. So we also have to overcome our communication and how to convince them best. So now I come to the main topic, which is examining the molecular basis of neurodivergence. So the patients are assessed by psychiatrists. We recruit ethnically and age-sex matched neurotypical controls. We take peripheral blood from them, and these are the techniques we use, which is biochemical analysis, genotyping, our mRNA expression, cytogenetic studies. I'm only going to talk about one small part of this data today, and I'm going to compare the two main disorders, autism spectrum and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Autism spectrum is first diagnosed or can be detected at the age of 3 years, whereas attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is often not detected till they are 10 to 12 years of age. The prevalence, there is a census from the US and Europe, but not so in India. But our data is showing that the prevalence is as similar to the US data. ASD is about 1.85% of the school-going children. And worldwide, and in India, there is not a complete census, but a quote in one of the papers, it's 1.12%. Worldwide, for attention deficiency, 5 to 8% of school-going children, 2 to 2.5% of adults. From the cases we get at Manovikas Kendra, we are seeing 6 to 11% of children have ADHD and 5% of adults. I want to tell you an interesting story here. Parents bring their children, and we often find, not often but sometimes find, the child doesn't really have a problem. One of the parents has ADHD and the child is actually copying that parent. And when we point this out to the parent, there is complete denial. They won't accept it. And we don't see them again. But this is the sad truth of what happens. And these are the techniques we use to assess ASD and ADHD. So for all the biologists and doctors here, you can see it has a very, very complex etiology. Epigenetics is involved, there is copy number variation, genetics and environment, whether it's toxins, pollution. Actually, Soumya came over and showed us a direct correlation between increase in pollution and autism. They have data worldwide. There's a lot of changes in single nucleotide polymorphism, many genes which don't seem to be really connected, but many genes are altered in ASD and ADHD. And of course, when puberty hits, sex hormones are also involved. We started looking at neurotransmitters because these are the chemicals in your blood which are ultimately going to control your mood, your behavior, your physical health and mental health. And this is just a cartoon taken from one of the reviews, which if you read the last line is important. There is a balance between excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitters, which is crucial. So it's not that one increases and the other decreases and then all this you can identify. No, it is a very complex regulatory network where you can see that these are the 6 main neurotransmitters. But these neurotransmitters don't always act positively or negatively. And they affect other neurotransmitters in a very complex manner. So our main challenge is to identify a specific biomarker for diagnosis and therapy, looking at the complexity, whether you look genetic association, mRNA expression, whether you look at neurotransmitters, you look at vitamins in the blood. It's very complex. It's not any one causative effect, or we could not identify one causative marker which can be used for assessment. So let me give you a little data about autism spectrum disorder. The most two of these neurotransmitters that we study are dopamine and GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid. So ASD patients have low dopamine, and there is a lack of balance in the excitatory inhibitory transmission of GABA. So our data shows that higher GABA was associated with lower dopamine norepinephrine in ASD patients. And you can see the data here as standard statistical significance. We then did the specific nucleotide variations and the SNPs. And we saw that in dopamine transporter DAT1 in the intronic location, ASD patients had higher frequency of some of the alleles as in another location in the dopamine transporter. Similarly, in the GABA receptors, we see different alleles which are higher in ASD patients. We then asked if there is a difference in expression of these genes. And while there are decreased expression of dopaminergic and GABA receptor gene system, one GABA gene is upregulated, and that GABA gene controls the dopaminergic system. This is we believe it is hypothesized to control the dopaminergic system. It is localized on dopaminergic neurons, and if it's overexpressed, it recruits more and more GABA, which leads to inhibition and does not allow dopamine to enter, so the reward function is not there. Now, this was proved in knockout models in a study in the United States. So we propose that the role of GABA and dopamine is that increased GABA inhibits dopaminergic signaling via the GABA3B receptor. This hypodopaminergic state causes loss of reward function and behavioral impairments. We also looked at serotonin, and we have seen that ASD patients have lower serotonin in their bloodstream, in the plasma. The correlation there was that the serotonin transporter is overexpressed, which takes up the serotonin from the bloodstream, pushes it into platelets. When the child or the individual has lower serotonin, he has increased repetitive behavior and irritability. Doctors give, psychiatrists give then SSRIs, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So that allows serotonin to increase in their blood system and their behavioral issues is reduced. I'll take you to a snapshot of our attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Again, we studied two neurotransmitters here, serotonin and glutamate, and lower levels of both lead to depression, anxiety, impulsivity, and lack of concentration. So we again did an entire spectrum of analysis with the genetics, quantitative trait analysis by genotypic and phenotypic studies. We did expression of key genes in neurotransmitter pathways, case control analysis of neurotransmitters, and we also looked at parental transmission, whether they were transmitting mutated alleles. We also have studied now, from pharmacogenomic point of view, what is the patient's response to the medication he's being given. So this shows to you that patients who have altered or derived alleles for serotonin transporter and the glutamate receptor 7, they showed higher ADHD trait scores. On your y-axis, we are measuring the ADHD trait scores for these children. And we see that these genotypic variations lead to increased ADHD trait scores. And again, serotonin transporter expression was increased, as we had mentioned, along with a reduction in all other glutamate receptor genes except, the serotonin receptor was increased, expression was increased, but all the glutamate transporter were reduced. When we checked their blood levels, we found there was surprisingly not much difference in the serotonin levels, but the glutamate levels were significantly reduced. So our previous analysis in ADHD patients revealed lower glutamatergic signaling, reduced dopaminergic signaling, and that was more at-risk genetic variants. So based on this data, our team hypothesized that the hypodopaminergic condition could be due to lower glutamatergic signaling. Again, this leads to dysregulated executive function, behavioral impairments. To validate our hypothesis, our new paper, which is going out soon, we have analyzed the influence of dopaminergic, GABAergic, and glutamatergic systems in the etiology of ADHD. And we see again that a comparative analysis revealed lower dopamine, glutamate, and higher GABA levels in ADHD patients. Now, and all the genes encoding dopamine transporter, receptor, GABA receptors, glutamate receptors, they were all down-regulated in ADHD patients. So our studies confirmed our hypothesis that an interactive influence of dopamine, glutamate, and GABA exists in ADHD patients. So lower expression of GABA receptor and higher levels of circulating GABA deregulates, so the balance is gone of GABA signaling. This leads to reduced dopaminergic signaling, loss of reward function, and dysregulated motor functions as well, behavioral impairments. So we then asked, the psychiatrist is prescribing a drug to the ADHD and ASD patients. Is it being metabolized correctly in all patients, or is it different? Now, the main enzyme which is responsible for metabolizing the drugs is CYP2D6, a cytochrome P450-2D6. So it generally metabolizes drugs used for treating psychiatric disorders. We found that functional CYP2D6 genetic variants, if an individual has 2 copies of the normal allele, he's a good metabolizer. He metabolizes the drug well. If there are 2 copies of mutations in the alleles, he's a very poor metabolizer. And if there's greater than 2 copies of the normal alleles, he's an ultra-fast metabolizer. So the dosage of drug has to be adjusted according to his genetic profile. We need to know how many alleles and if they are wild type or mutated before we give the drug to the patient. And our data showed that patients with derived alleles of CYP2D6 had higher ADHD trait scores. So normally the pharmaceutical medication given to ADHD patients at Manovikas Kendra is in the urban areas, the patients who are less than 10 years, we give them methylphenidate, and for 2 months we give them at a dosage of 0.3 milligram per kg of body weight, and then double it for 4 months. And in the rural areas, since this drug is not available without prescription, we give them atomoxetine, but we only give them, it's a hepatotoxic drug. So we only give them after they're 10 years old. And our data showed that this treatment works. The ADHD traits went down after treatment with methylphenidate. So it's a good drug to use initially. But we also saw that patients who had wild type variants of many of these gene clusters respond better to MPH. So wherever you see the first bars are the wild type variants, they had better response to the drugs. So our data suggests that targeted pharmacogenomics-based therapy can provide personalized solutions for ADHD and ASD patients. Genetic and neurotransmitter analysis allow psychiatrists to prescribe a suitable dosage. Because all these drugs have terrible side effects. Parents get very worried. The children have put on weight, puberty is delayed or accelerated. There's so many problems. We also provide brain function therapy to these patients based on individual needs, which I showed you earlier. And by the way, we found this brain function therapy to work very well in normal adults. For example, people who work in corporates who are burnt out, scientists who are always in the lab, they need treatment. Our brain function therapy, come to Manovikas, we'll give you neurofeedback. Yeah? It really works well. And these are some of our publications in the last few years, and our team has done extremely well. And I used to love this about LV Prasad research team. With very limited funding, with really, it's almost like you can't live and you can't die, that kind of funding. So little, but we still managed to publish in high impact journals. So it's a very proud moment to share this with you. And the work in progress, we are looking at various other angles. One is the relevance of carboxylesterase 1 gene. We are also looking at the oxytocin system for ASD. Chloride transporters have come up in a big way recently, and we're looking at the effect of polyphenol more as a toxic agent. Heavy metal toxicity also. You see, Calcutta, a large part of it is high in arsenic. And people who live in multi-storied buildings, there is a lot of contamination in the water. So we are looking at that as a potential risk factor for neurodevelopmental disorders. We are also writing our paper on neurofeedback and cognitive training. And believe me, I think this is going to be very useful for me to spread the message that you don't need to take medication always to calm your brain down. Severe anxiety and depression can be handled with neurofeedback and cognitive training. Emerging role of non-coding RNAs. This is a very interesting paper, and we have found now mind-bogglingly thousands and thousands of long non-coding RNA which are playing a very major role in both ADHD and ASD. Globally, people are working on similar things, non-coding RNA being one of the biggest ones. They're also looking like us at the neurotransmitters, at the synaptic signaling pathway. And this is something I've been waiting to jump into, which is gut microbiota, because already there are reports that autistic patients have different gut microbiota. But there is no data from India. So we have this one little advantage. All our data is based on Indian patients coming to us. So even at places like NIMHANS, they are analyzing data which is from Europe and UK, from USA. Whereas we have with us Indian data, and we hope to be sharing and collaborating with everyone. So epigenetics, of course, neuroinflammation, immunology, and genetic variants, and of course abnormal brain development. So there's a lot of this which I didn't talk about, cortical volume being more or less in ADHD and ASD, and also in cerebral cortex, striatum, amygdala, and cerebellum. However, one of the most fascinating and troubling questions for all of us in this field today is why the male bias? If you remember one of the earlier slides, I think I'll quickly take you to it because there's a very interesting figure there. Sorry, I should have planted it later again. Yeah, this one. If you look at this pie chart here, 75% or more of the patients are male, 25% is female, and even then, in the women, the burden of the disorder is much less than in male. It's much more severe in male. So why is it X-linked? Is it not X-linked? Is it a network? Questions which are boggling us. Last month, 2 weeks ago, a very interesting paper came out. They did an entire X-linked, X chromosome Y association study and showed they just sequenced they took the data from X chromosome sequence. They showed that 6,873 individuals, from them with autism, they identified 59 variants and 17 genes, which they've listed here, which are associated with ASD. We don't know the connection. And many of these genes are not functionally related. So what is it that controls this X-linked bias? So they highlight sex-linked genetic influences. They also have made a lot of speculation on why it's X-linked and the male bias. But it is honestly almost frightening to see the male bias in autism. It's something we need to address yesterday. So I will finish my talk by introducing you to the members of the team on whose behalf I've given a talk today. In 1999, I was very lucky that one of my senior-most colleagues from Indian Institute of Chemical Biology, Dr. Manoranjan Singh, he passed away during COVID, helped me start Manovikas as the Biomedical Research Center. Along with him was Nanda Gopal, who also unfortunately passed away. And Usha Rajamma has retired, but Kanchan Mukhopadhyay is still leading the team single-handedly. On the left and the right, you see we have 25 PhDs awarded on autism and ASD from Manovikas Kendra. That is a very proud moment. This is our current team. Kanchan is the leader here. Madhura is now looking at research and development and collaboration with industries. Tarush Patakia is a bioinformatics. He's actually a physicist, but he turned into bioinformatics, and he's doing our genetic analysis. Nilanjana is a biochemist from Indian Institute of Chemical Biology, and she's working on heavy metal toxicity. Her field is arsenic. Marshita and Shurmishra have just got, and I described both their thesis work to you today. They finished their thesis last year. They have joined us as scientists and are now leading their own labs. So this is the current team, and these are the graduate students who are working under our team today. Thank you very much for your time.
The beauty of this topic is that diseases which we most often feel afraid of link it with kind of social stigma and other, but there is a science behind such diseases. While we provide support system to these individuals, there is an opportunity for us to unravel the root causes, and I think today's story exemplify those opportunities. So thank you very much for giving such a wonderful.
There is a video of there are two videos of one autistic child and his success story, and one ADHD child. We'll just show slip. And before the videos are played, I want to share a fantastic story with you. Balu was with us on the 11th of December when we celebrated the 25 years of biomedical research. And I invited the Deputy High Commissioner of British Deputy High Commissioner to be the chief guest. It was the most moving story I've heard. You know, when he walked in, we were all puzzled because he behaved a little differently. But we are used to it. So then he got up to speak and he said, I accepted this invitation in the blink of an eye because, you see, I'm a special child.
Oh.
And he said, I was bullied every single day in my childhood. Going to school, coming back, my mother did not accept that I was a special child. It's only when he went from junior school to whatever next level, primary school, he was allowed to take up music and maths. He said, with that accomplishment, I could crack the civil service exam, and I'm in front of you today as a British deputy. Yes. So he has offered to come and talk to our parents because the parents need more counseling. We also do some counseling, but I want to do it now in a bigger level. Just show you a story of our autistic. This is an ADHD child. Yeah, doesn't matter. A little bit, and we can put it off in a minute.
ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by attention, hyperactivity and impulsivity. বাড়িতে হয়তো সে এক জায়গায় বসছে না, কোনো কাজেই তার মন নেই, কিছুই করতে ওর ভাল লাগছে না, তখন পেরেন্ট আমাদের কাছে নিয়ে আসেন। তখন তার একটা অ্যাসেসমেন্ট প্রথমে করা হয়, তারপরে তার নিড বেস দেখা হয় তার কি কোন কোন জায়গাগুলো অসুবিধা হচ্ছে, সেগুলো দেখে তাকে থেরাপিগুলো দেওয়া হয়। ADHD মানেই একটা অ্যাটেনশনের অসুবিধা, সেখানে বেশিরভাগ ক্ষেত্রেই আমরা চেষ্টা করি তার অ্যারেঞ্জ করে নিই ক্লাসরুমটা, যেখানে বসে তাকে কাজ করানো হবে। এদের এইসব বাচ্চার ক্ষেত্রে সবসময় একটা ক্লিয়ার, শর্ট অ্যান্ড সিম্পল ইনস্ট্রাকশন সবসময় দিতে হয়, আর এদের জন্য একটা ভিজুয়াল শিডিউল করতে হয়, মানে ডেলি টাইম টেবিলটা ফিক্সড করতে হয়, আর সেটা সবসময় ছবি ইউজ করে করা হয় যাতে ওরা দেখেই বুঝে যায় আজকে আমাকে কি কি করতে হবে। Here at Manovikas, we recognize each child with ADHD has unique strengths and ability. আমাদের শিডিউলে যেহেতু অ্যাটেনশনটার অসুবিধা, অ্যাটেনশন এনহ্যান্সিং অ্যাক্টিভিটির দিকে বেশি জোর দিই, যেমন অনটাস্ক অ্যাক্টিভিটি আছে আমাদের, বিল্ডিং উইথ ব্লকস, পাজল সলভিং অ্যাক্টিভিটি। খুব আরও ছোট বাচ্চা হলে তাকে প্লেডও অ্যাক্টিভিটি করা হয়, কারণ এদের ক্ষেত্রে সেন্সরি প্লেটা খুব ইম্পর্টেন্ট পার্ট একটা। আর এছাড়া ফিঙ্গারপ্রিন্ট করানো, এগুলো বেশি করে করানো হয়। ওই জন্য এক্ষেত্রে বাচ্চাদের ক্ষেত্রে সবসময় একটা বিহেভিয়ার থেরাপি বা একটা থেরাপি কখনো কার্যকরী হয় না। আমাদের মনে
go to ADHD children. And also we have to deal with their home environment. We make these drills
for the local population because they will come to us with the language, and we also go to their homes, and we've taken the films at home. We've shot the films at home also to see how we train these parents. There are training classes, so we go to see if the parent can fulfill what we are teaching.
आपका तो लगता है बस यही सपना रंग जपना अपना आपका तो लगता है बस यही सपना।
In the year 2013 যখন রায়ানের বয়স 6.5 বছর 6.5 years ও তখন আমাদের মনোবিকাশ কেন্দ্রে আসে এবং ওর তখন অ্যাসেসমেন্ট করা হয়। অ্যাসেসমেন্টে যেটা ডায়াগনোসিস হয়েছে সেটা হচ্ছে ডিলেড স্পিচ অ্যান্ড ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ এবং অটিজম স্পেকট্রাম ডিসঅর্ডার আর সিজার ডিসঅর্ডার। Autism spectrum disorder had many problems like social communication disorder, social interaction disorder, and sensory processing disorder. We give them need-based therapy like speech and language therapy, sensory integration therapy, hydrotherapy, brain function therapy, functional academics, vocational training. হাইপার অ্যাক্টিভিটি প্রচণ্ড ছিল এবং সেলফ হেল্প স্কিলগুলো ভীষণ পুয়ার ছিল।
মানে লং টার্ম প্রসেস এটা একটা, কিন্তু অনেকটা ও সেটেল ডাউন করেছে, কাম হয়েছে। আগে এইভাবে ও বসতেই পারতো না এক জায়গায়, এখনো অনেকটাই এক জায়গায় বসে 2.5 hours ও ক্লাস করছে চেয়ার টেবিলে বসে। তো সেই দিক দিয়ে দেখতে গেলে হি হ্যাজ ইমপ্রুভড আ লট।
সিম্পল সেন্টেন্স রিড করতে পারে এবং সিম্পল সেন্টেন্স রাইট করতে পারে এবং ফাংশনাল ম্যাথামেটিক্সের মধ্যে অ্যাডিশন, সাবট্রাকশন, মাল্টিপ্লিকেশন এগুলো উইথ ক্যালকুলেটর করতে পারে। কিছু জিনিস যেটা ও দেখে বাবল টিউবের মাধ্যমে, আরও কিছু লাইটিং ইকুইপমেন্টস আছে যেগুলো ও প্রেস করে করে ওর অডিও ভিজুয়াল ডেফিসিটটা অনেকটা ইন্টারভেন্ট হয়েছে। রায়ানের একটা স্পেশাল স্ট্রেংথ হচ্ছে হি ইজ মিউজিক লাভার। যে কোনো গান শুনে ও হুবহু সেই গানটা করতে পারে। ওর গড গিফটেড একটা মেলোডিয়াস ভয়েস আছে, তো যার জন্য এটা আমাদের ক্লাসে যখন আমরা ক্লাস নিই সঙ্গে আমাদের FM হিসেবে রায়ান কাজ করে, অল টাইম গান শোনায়।
ভীষণভাবে ইনক্লাইন টু মিউজিক। ওকে আমরা বাড়িতেও স্পেশাল মিউজিক টিচার্স আছে, প্লাস আমি ওকে 2 রকমের মিউজিক, ক্লাসিক্যাল মিউজিক প্লাস নন ক্লাসিক্যাল, 2 ধরনের মিউজিক দিয়ে ট্রাই করছি টিচার্স দিয়ে, যাতে ও ভীষণভাবে গান ভালোবাসে। সব রকম গান, যত পুরনো নতুন, ও সব গান গাইতে পারে। এদের কাছে শুধুমাত্র একটা স্কুল নয়, ইটস অ্যান ইনস্টিটিউশন যেখানে বাচ্চাদের ফর স্পেশালি এবল চাইল্ড একটা হোলসাম ডেভেলপমেন্ট হচ্ছে।
Rayan, we are so proud of you. You have never let anything limit you, and the sky is open to you. We love your music, we love hearing you sing, and we can't wait for the rest of the world to be able to hear your voice as well. Manovikas is always with you and behind you.
All right, all good things have to come to a close, but very mind-blowing, I think mind-opening session for all of us to hear the 5 decades of service, very dedicated, just concluded in the story of Ryan, how the parents gave the testimony of being personally involved as a whole institute to bring that one person, and with that so many people. 12 publications and many more publications in process, 3 generations involved into this, and I think probably I need a brain test as well, because I wonder the men are at more problem than women, because probably women has less thing to focus and men have to juggle between so many things. I'm sure everybody has a lot of questions to ask, but I think Anuradha, Professor Anuradha will be around us today and tomorrow as well, or on the emails. I'm sure Beulah and her team would like to get some time as well. So we are very privileged, and thank you for just enlightening with the wonderful, amazing lecture. This wouldn't have been possible without our back-end team, with security, with our comms team, just ensuring that all works. We also have guests from all other campuses who also were, and friends who participated, and not to forget all the staff and the trainees and the colleagues who have joined us. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.